Hello everybody, it is Natalie here, and today I am filming a video all about how to save money to buy a home. This is going to be the first video in a multi-part series on my channel where I go through the home buying process with you guys. I am right in the middle of it. I am not a homeowner yet, but I have put an offer on a house, my offer was accepted, and now I am in the process of getting a loan and the closing date is a few weeks away. Before I even decided to buy a house, I had a million questions. I feel like there was just so much information that wasn't told to me that you kind of have to dig through to find. Like, there's just not one clear answer on, hey, how do I buy a house? There's just a lot of information out there, so I'm hoping that these video series can help condense it and can just let you know exactly what you need to know. So if you are in the home buying process, you can watch these for reference, or if you are going to be in the home buying process in the future, then you can save these and watch these later, or just watch them now and kind of get a head start on saving and what you need to know before you buy a house. I am 24 years old and I am buying my first home, and I will get into all the details on the actual finding a house, putting an offer in, getting pre-approved, all of that I'm gonna talk about in other videos. This video right now is about saving for a house, how to save for a house, and what do you even need to save when you are wanting to purchase a home. I wrote down a multi-page document, so we're just gonna jump into it. If it looks like I'm reading off a script, it's because I am reading off my document, but I know that this will help you. I also wanted to give a huge disclaimer that I am not an expert. I am not a mortgage broker, I am not a loan officer, I don't work in real estate. This is not my level of expertise. This is just my knowledge from going through the process myself. So I would double check everything. I would talk to experts if you are buying a house, and I am not a financial expert either. I just always need to make that huge disclaimer because I am not responsible for anybody's decisions. Let's talk about how much you need to save for buying a house. So the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, what do you need to save for? I'm gonna break down all the costs that you actually need to save for. So first, before you begin searching for a home, you actually need to know what type of home can you afford. It might be nice to just plug in $600,000 and look at those types of homes, but if you cannot get approved for that type of mortgage, or you cannot afford a $600,000 home, then it's best to be realistic. You can also talk to a mortgage lender and see up to what price of home you can qualify for. There are also mortgage calculators online, so you can do it yourself too. You can plug in how much money you want to spend a month, you can plug in the interest rate for today, and then you can see the price of a home that you are able to be approved for. I will say to keep in mind that if you are self-employed like myself, it is a little more difficult to actually get a loan and to get approved. When you are getting approved for a loan or pre-approved for a loan, the things that they look at are actually your previous 2 tax returns. So because I'm self-employed, I don't have pay stubs to show for myself, so they actually look at my previous 2 tax returns and take the average of those 2 rather than looking at what I'm making this year. So if this year you're making a ton of money, but last year and the previous year you didn't, you're gonna have a harder time getting a loan because there's no way of looking at what you made this year. They really only look at your income in the sense of your 2 previous tax returns. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at what can you afford. You have to take your 2 previous tax returns, average the 2, and that's the income that it's based off of. That is for self-employed people. So if you are self-employed like me, definitely keep that in mind. And when we do talk about pre-approval process, I will talk about that in the next video. This really is just about the saving costs, but I did want to throw that out there because when you're looking to see what you can afford, keep in mind that they're going to be looking at your previous 2 tax returns. Now that you know up to what you can afford, so the most that you can afford, you can now see how much money you will need for a down payment. So a down payment is a percentage of the home price that you are putting down in cash to purchase the home. A good offer is around 20% down. So 20% of the purchase price of the home should be put down. That is a good offer. However, that's not a requirement and it is by no means a minimum. You can put down less than 20% and still be approved for a loan, but 20% always makes for a really strong offer. And if you put less than 20%, you actually will be charged a private mortgage insurance every single month. So if you cannot afford the 20% down, you're gonna be charged an additional insurance fee every single month. And this is because if you're putting less than 20% down, you aren't as strong of a candidate. So this is just to make sure that you are paying off your loan every single month. And this is because if you put less than 20% down, you are considered a risky applicant and they think that you are more at risk of not paying your payments on time. So that is is why they put that extra insurance fee on there. Give 20% or more, you do not have that fee every single month. And another thing to note that I actually had no idea about was that family members and friends can actually gift you a down payment. They have to sign something that states that they are not going to look for repayment, that it is a gift. They have to actually sign something that says that. But if you have family or friends that are willing to give you some cash for a down payment, then that is actually a possibility. I did not know that. I'm not doing that myself, but my mom told me to include this in the video because she was like, that's an option. So saving for a down payment is the first thing that you're going to need to do. If your goal is to buy a $300,000 home and that is what you've already calculated that you can afford, your down payment, if you're putting down 20%, is going to be $60,000. That means that you are going to need to have $60,000 in cash to give to purchase the home. You do not need the whole $300,000. But again, just remember, you do not need to put 20% down. I'm just using it because I think it is recommended. It's what I'm personally doing, and I feel like it's just a good rule of thumb, especially since it means that you're going to be avoiding the private mortgage insurance fees. So now that you know that you need to have $60,000, you might think, okay, great, that's all I need. But something that a lot of people forget, there are closing costs, and closing costs is something that no one talks about. All you ever hear about is down payment. Save for your down payment, save for your down payment. Closing costs actually can add up to thousands of dollars. I feel like they should be included in more of the conversations about buying a home. According to Zillow, the average closing cost ranges from 2% to 5% of the purchase price. That to me is pretty big. That's not like a small percentage. So let's say you are buying a home for $300,000, then your closing costs can range anywhere from $6,000 to $15,000. That's a lot. That does not mean that it is always going to be between 2 and 5%. Your mortgage lender should be able to tell you and will tell you how much your closing costs are, but when you are calculating how much you need to save for a home, I would account between 2 and 5% because that is on average what the closing costs will be. This does not go towards your down payment. Something to note is this is not included in your down payment. It's not included in the $60,000 that you're putting down. This is in addition to it. And this is cost that you are not going to get back. This isn't just lending it. This is just you have to pay these closing costs in order to close on the home. Now that you know what you can afford, how much your down payment should be, and what your closing costs are, you have a pretty good idea of the number that you need to save. But there are some other things besides just saving in order to get a home that you should be proactive about. Number one is to have good credit. Credit is something that they look at and it is crucial. Don't have revolving credit card debt. So if you are constantly just paying the minimum on your credit cards, that is not gonna look good when it comes to buying a home. Pay off your credit cards in full so that you don't have any credit card debt. If you don't have credit because you've never had a credit card and you have zero credit, it's actually going to be very difficult for you to get a loan. Not impossible, but it is more difficult for you to get a loan. So make sure that you begin to build your credit before you actually go into the home buying process. So now let's talk about monthly costs. After the down payment, there are still costs to buying a home. It's not the down payment and then you're done. Then you have to pay off your mortgage and all of the other fees. A good rule of thumb that I found online is to not exceed 28% of your income on housing expenses. So what this looks like is, let's say you are getting paid $5,000 every single month. Your housing expenses should not exceed $1,400 a month. And by housing expenses, I mean your mortgage plus your interest, your real estate taxes, private mortgage insurance, if you have that because you did not put 20% down, and HOA fees if those are applicable as well. And again, remember, your monthly expenses are going to depend on your interest rate. Interest rates right now are low, but interest rates change from day to day. So what I would do is I would Google what are interest rates right now. There are a ton of websites that will tell you, and interest rates also vary from who you are. So if you're a first-time home buyer, if you have good credit, if you have good income, if you're a strong applicant, interest rates range. But it's good to see kind of what the average is out there right now so that you can plug that in to see. Some years interest rates were a lot higher. This year you can get interest rates in the 2s, like 2.5, 2.7, 2.8. That's really, really, really low compared to other years. So this is all going to depend on when you're watching this, when you're applying for a house, what your interest rate is going to be. I personally worked with a mortgage broker to get pre-approved, and then I'm also working with them to find my loan. They're the one that told me what my interest rate would be. I personally worked with DHL Mortgage in Charlotte, North Carolina. I think they are a local mortgage broker, but if you guys are interested, they were amazing. Like, I couldn't recommend a better one. I previously worked with Movement Mortgage, and it took 3 weeks and I wasn't pre-approved yet, and so I canceled with them. I was like, we're not gonna continue, and I went to DHL and they got me pre-approved in 24 hours. So I highly recommend going with DHL if you guys are in North Carolina, and you can let them know that I sent you. So now on to how to save for a home. Actually tangible tips that I did and that I hope that you can take if you guys are saving for a home. How you save will depend on you. Everybody saves differently and everybody needs to save differently. However, one good rule of thumb for saving for a house is to not put your money in risky investments. Risky investments include the stock market. It includes things that go up and down that are very volatile. So what you should be putting your savings into is exactly that, into a savings account. My money right now is in a savings account. I don't want to risk losing it. I don't want to risk all of a sudden having the market crash and losing a ton of my money. While yes, you can grow your money a lot, it's very, very risky. And when you are buying a house, you don't want to risk losing your down payment. So it's actually safest to put them in very boring accounts, just a normal savings account, so that you make sure that you're not losing the money for your down payment, especially as you get closer to buying your house. So what is your timeline? Start with the money you have right now, not including your emergency funds. Excluding your emergency fund, how much money do you have saved up already that you could put towards a down payment? I think you should always have an emergency fund. You should never deplete your savings account to zero. So we're gonna take away that emergency fund and just look at what you have in your savings account aside from that. So let's say that you wanna buy a home in 2 years and your home that you wanna buy is $300,000. You're going to put $60,000 down for a down payment, and you currently have $10,000 in your savings account, excluding your emergency fund. So now you need $50,000 to save for your down payment. And let's say your timeline is 2 years away. You have 24 months to save $50,000. It sounds a lot, it sounds very intimidating, and don't get me wrong, it is a lot, but it is definitely doable. If you break it down, 50,000 divided by 24, that means you need to save $2,083 every single month. So that might sound like a lot, but I feel like once you break it down into months, you realize it's actually a lot more achievable than you might think. So now that you know how much you need to save, you need to look at your budget. And I do have a budgeting video that I will link down below, because I don't think that this video is going to be long enough for me to talk all about budgeting, but I recommend having a manual budget. I think that you need to have a manual budget when doing this, unless saving $2,000 is very easy for you. You should 100% have a manual budget. I have my video so that you can hear all about how I budget, but having a manual one that you actually write down all your purchases in is going to help you so much when it comes to saving that money every single month. You're actually going to be able to see every purchase, and you can see what you can cut out in the future. Also keep in mind, some months you might be able to save more than that $2,000. Like, what if one month you get a bonus and you can actually save $5,000? Save that $5,000. Don't spend it on a new TV, on a new computer, especially if you don't need to. Save that money instead and put that away to go towards your down payment. Also, another thing I want to let you guys know that is, if you can live off of your income before that $2,000 is in, so let's say you get paid $5,000 a month and you have $2,000 for your down payment, if you can live off of that $3,000 a month, live off of that $3,000 a month. Pretend like that's all you're making, and then put aside that $2,000 so that you can reach your goals. That is what I did personally. I live as if I am making way less money than I am. I do not live as if I'm making the amount that I am making. Not only to save for this house, but just to save in general for a rainy day in case something happens, especially being self-employed. But even not, if you lose your job, you know, you just never know what's gonna happen. I don't want to overspend or spend just because I can. I feel like it's always good to cut costs when you can, to budget when you can, and to honestly just spend very smartly. Is that a word? Smartly? Don't be stupid with your money. Don't fall into lifestyle creep. That's just a huge, just budgeting 101. And something else that I actually looked into that I think is very interesting is, if you need to, while you are saving for a home, you can actually stop putting money into your retirement accounts. And I know some people might be shrieking right now. This is not advice for everybody. This is not blanket advice. Please don't take this as blanket advice. But if you want to save for a home, an option is to hold off on your retirement fund for these 2 years, put that money into your down payment, and then resume it back up once you have purchased the home. This is not for everybody. I found this advice on DaveRamsey.com, but it is an option because it's not like you're just not gonna pay your retirement fund anymore, but you can pause it for the 2 years while you're actually investing in something else. So it's not like this money is just going to waste and you're not paying it. You are still investing in your future. That is my advice on how to save, and I hope that answers your questions on what to save, how much you need to save. Of course, it depends on everybody. I cannot give blanket advice. I saved around around $80,000 to put for a down payment, and it definitely was something that I was intentional about. I knew that I wanted to buy a house one day, so I was putting that money in my savings account. I had taken my money out of my stocks very recently, especially once I saw that they were up. I was like, I'm pulling out because I know I want to buy a house soon. I didn't want it to be in those risky accounts. So saving is something that I feel like I'm very good at, but I'm also very blessed and very privileged to have a job where I am able to save a lot. I hope that this advice was helpful for any of you guys out there. And also I did want to note that buying a house is not something that you need to do by a certain date. I feel like in my last video, I titled it, I bought a house by 24 years old. And there were some comments that's like, big whoop, I bought a house at 20, or oh my gosh, that's amazing, I'm 30 and I haven't bought a house yet. Everyone's timeline is different. You might be able to buy a house at 18, you might not be able to buy a house until you're 35. There's no right or wrong. Like, it doesn't make you better because you bought it earlier, and it doesn't make you worse because you bought it later. So please know that every single person is on their own track. I just wanted to help you guys out because I had a lot of questions, and please subscribe if you want to see more of this house series. I'm taking you in real time as I'm going through everything. You guys will be seeing it with me. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys liked it, and I will see you guys in my next one. So leave any questions that you have so I can answer it in all of the housing series. All right, bye guys.